Cool.
Now to Louise Taggart, who's going to speak for Families Against Corporate Killers. Small technical interlude. I couldn't think of the word. Digression, I was going to say. Interlude. Okay.
Tonight I wanted to take you for a short walk in our shoes to try to give you an insight into the journey of burdens that are travelled by those who lose loved ones in work-related deaths. I want to starkly illustrate why we need to continue countering the burdens on business fleetings that we're subjected to all too often, consigning them to an early grave, just as our relatives were sent to a far too early grave. No matter how our journey started, turning her husband's life support machine off on her son's 8th birthday, watching her husband suffer immeasurably for 6 weeks before succumbing to multiple injuries, or having her 6-year-old son lie dying in her arms. The death of our loved ones signalled the start of the horrendous burdens FACK families have faced and continue to face daily. Lorna French says she aged 10 years in the 18 months after her husband Brian was killed, alongside his colleague Colin Ferguson at Pennyvenie Open Cast Mine. Their Land Rover run over by a 100-ton truck. 15 months after their deaths, their families had only received the sparsest of information from the Procurator Fiscal in Scotland, and that was only after they'd written to the Lord Advocate telling her that they'd been patient, and some might say too patient, because in the months that they'd waited for news, Jim Griffin, a father of 3, was crushed to death between 2 dumper trucks at Pennyvenie Open Cast Mine. While we wait, we're left wondering where to turn for help. The reality for far too many is summed up by this quote: "There's nobody there to help you, you're on your own, and you think, what the hell am I going to do now?" Meanwhile, we're not treated as the victims of crime. So, for example, there's no support from victim support, and those who are meant to keep us informed don't. I called my police liaison officer today and found out that the CPS couldn't find enough evidence to prosecute an individual in regard to my son's death. They didn't even have the guts to call me and let me know. I'm in shock and I don't know what to do. The desperate words of a mother whose son was killed in the Battersea crane disaster. And so, without support, we go to battle with the justice system which is meant to work for us. Judith Allen's son, Stephen, was killed by a block grab, being used for a purpose expressly forbidden by the manufacturer's manual. HSE initially decided not to prosecute. They only did so because of the family's persistence, assisted by FACK. On the morning she was set to go to court to hear the verdict, Judith's Facebook status said, "In my bag, I've got Stephen's name tags from when he was born and when he died, and I've got his first and last locks of hair, a photo of him that I love, and lots of tissues. This is it. This is the last time I can fight for you, my beautiful son. You deserved so much better in life." Bentleys were found guilty and fined £200,000. Yet without the family and FACK's persistence, no prosecution would have taken place in that case at all. It was more than 3 years after my brother was killed before the case against his employer, company Mighty, plus its managing director, operations director and technical services manager got to court. Due to prosecution failures, all 3 of those individuals walked free from the dock before the case got to the jury. The advocate for Mighty was then able to refer to his client, the company, as an invisible man now sitting in the dock. Well, the invisible man did not take the decisions that led to my brother's acquittal. Real-life individuals did. So conviction of that invisible man and the £300,000 fine the invisible man had to pay, that didn't provide justice for my family. In the case of Chris company's 3 directors didn't attend court. The firm wasn't represented, and it had been put into liquidation. The company was found guilty, but the judge was only able to impose what he himself described as the absurd and unreasonable fine of £1 for each of 2 safety offences and £1 towards costs, prompting Chris's 7-year-old nephew to ask, does that mean they killed Uncle Chris for £3? So after many years of seeking justice for our loved ones, we're left burdened by the fact that we feel we failed them because the authorities have failed us. And the feeling that we've failed is compounded by the fact that we're then told, in my brother's case, that his death could have been prevented had his employer ensured that safe working practices were being carried out in accordance with the company's own written procedures. My brother was an experienced spark. He was electrocuted when he cut through a wire marked not in use, which was in fact live and had not been isolated or locked off. During the trial, we heard that 7 sparks lost their lives between 2004 and 2006 as a result of failure to ensure power switches were properly isolated and locked off to prevent their inadvertent reconnection. The HSE inspector who investigated Michael's death had been unable to obtain examples of these padlocks which should be used, despite the fact he was asking in major industry wholesalers. He was told there was no demand for them from the industry. A fundamental safety procedure each spark was taught during his or her apprenticeship, yet it was not being implemented by employers. Craig Whelan, his mum lives with the knowledge that his death was one of those accidents waiting to happen that are not accidents. He told his mum of his safety worries. So had Mark Wright. So had Stephen Burke. David Leyland had told his dad. He was certain someone would be involved in a serious incident at the Biffa waste site where he was a health and safety rep and where he was pushing so hard for changes to prevent that happening. David was found hours after last seen under tons of rubble, dismembered and badly crushed. While David's dad's thoughts were consumed with the fact that no one deserves to die like that, we couldn't even identify his body. It was in bits. I didn't get to kiss him or hold him to say goodbye. Biffa were getting ready their excuses so they could claim in court that as no one had actually seen David being killed, he could have been killed off-site, brought back and buried. After David's death, Biffa went on to tell his dad how proud David would be of them, as they'd now done all the things they'd been asking of them. While David's dad was haunted by what happened to his son, Biffa was patting itself on the back. And then there's a family's version of PHI. It tends not to be about permanent health insurance, but instead poverty, hardship and illness. In my brother's case, no evidence was laid in the defence of the invisible man. I want to know if the 3 individuals think about him every day as we do. I'll never know the answer to that. Chris Knoop's sister, Christelle, keeps asking herself, was he dead before the fireball, or did it kill him? She finds that difficult to get out of her head, but she'll never know the answer. So we want the government and the investigation and enforcement authorities to hear us loud and clear when we tell them who really bears the burden. Because the worst of it isn't the weight, the lack of support, the battle with the justice system, the ultimate injustice, the knowing it could so easily have been prevented, or even living with the unanswered questions. The worst of it is the everlasting burden of a life to live without our loved ones. Because nothing's going to bring my wee brother back from his journey to a far too early grave. We can't bring back those loved ones that we've lost, but we can and we will fight on to deliver justice and prevent others losing their lives in incidents, not accidents, that could and should have been prevented. And oh, we have been fighting. While Cameron talks of the health and safety monster, the message from us FACKers couldn't be clearer. The sustained attacks on health and safety regulation and enforcement by this condemned government are monstrous. Life and limb will be lost, life and limb are being lost, as a result of the continued denigration of health and safety by not only politicians, but also vast swathes of the media and, sadly, the population at large. Health and safety should not be a figure of fun. Health and safety is as serious as it gets. Health and Safety Minister Grayling's repeated refusals to meet with us FACK families 3 times so far, well, these refusals only serve to strengthen our resolve to make the voices of our loved ones heard from beyond the grave. Since we were here last, we've given them a voice at conferences held by, among others, the GMB, UCAT, Unison, Unite, the Institute of Employment Rights, and I drew the short straw and had to speak to a bunch of lawyers on a panel alongside Judith Hackett. We spoke the length and breadth of the country on International Workers' Memorial Day, from Cornwall to Kilmarnock, Liverpool, Manchester, Keighley, and so many others in between. We've been to the Durham Miners' Gala. We've been to Westminster Parliament. We've been to the Scottish Parliament. We've been at the Department for Work and Pensions protesting against the slashing of 14 regulations, including those relating to construction head protection, tower crane notification, and the dock regs. We've been in close contact with Unite and Caroline Campbell, wife of Ian Campbell, a Tilbury docker killed in October last year, providing support as she begins her journey seeking justice for her husband. Just a brief snapshot then of the sorts of things we've been up to as we continue to make people face the facts. And yes, every time we get up to speak, it knocks some lumps out of us, but we're more than willing to take the emotional battering, because we know what a difference it makes putting a human face on the so-called statistics. I'd just like to take the chance to say a heartfelt and huge thank you from us FACKers to all of you for what you do day and daily. For your colleagues. Value your commitment to taking the fight to the politicians, the employers, the enforcement authorities and others now more than ever before. Because please ultimately remember this, we FACKers are fighting for your right not to walk in our shoes. Together let's continue our life saving and we will stop this condemned government from killing us. Thank you.
You have an appeal for FACK. FACK actually operates and does all the work that Louise has described, and a great deal more, that we can't tell you everything that we're doing, on an absolute shoestring, on a few £1,000s of donations from people like you, from all the work of the FACKers themselves, money they put in, and their own time and effort, and a donation from Mitchell Solicitors. We do need money to do more. We already do a lot. We'd also like you to buy the DVD. Louise has spoken very eloquently about putting the face on it. We call Face the Facts, the human face of workplace killing. Many of you have already bought this, and several of you have been telling us today how you've used that, not just with your members, but with your managers. And it's very, very important that people buy this and watch it to support us, and we will do more to support and work with you.